Hello and welcome to another Dead Franchises. Today we'll be remembering the little-known sequel to CING's Trace Memory, Another Code R, A Journey into Lost Memories. Now this is a title that I've wanted to cover for some time, as it not only stands as my personal favorite Wii title, but also as another case of not being deemed quality enough for American shores, despite being fully translated in English for PAL territories, just ready to go. Who makes all these decisions? I wonder. There's something of a magical quality about the games developed by CING. In their time, they produced adventure titles that came from a place of understanding human expression and emotion. I believe the style of these games might appeal to an audience that can also appreciate a good silent film. It's just the player left alone with the music and the dialogue of the characters, presented not by voiced actors, but through the player projecting their own interpretation of the voices upon each given character. This silent style of game is something of an antiquated concept in the modern era, where high-budget AAA games aim for photorealism and fully voiced dialogue, often by high-paid actors, very rarely, if ever, leaving the player alone to imagine on their own. There was a genuine quality to their storytelling, a heart behind the design. Now I look back at the development of the Hotel Dusk series. It was easy to connect with the characters in that story because each were rotoscoped after real actors. However, instead of aiming for the uncanny valley, they aimed for the aha music video, and somehow it worked. These weren't just some anime caricatures of humans with over-the-top expressions tacked onto them. They're convincing as people, due to how well they were written and expressed. CING never fell prey to treating the premise of their stories as ironic. They never fell back on comedy and fan service like many prominent visual novel games tended to do to compensate for bad writing. Now this is gonna sound really strange and sappy, but I have to mentally prepare myself to play one of their titles, as I know I'm about to run the gambit of dramatic scenario writing, and I'm gonna be emotionally wrecked by the end, not only from the story, but from the hollow, sobering reality that there will be no future CING games, never ever ever. This isn't just a video about the death of a franchise, it's also about the death of the company that made the game.
I thought you loved me. Then why didn't you buy my game? You're the reason it was dead.
Like the previous entry, Trace Memory, Another Code R finds you in the shoes of everyone's favorite Hoppa, Ashley Mizuki Robbins, now an angst-ridden 15-year-old that's still plagued by her absent father Richard. After the events of Trace Memory, Richard took on a position at JC Valley, a scientific research organization that specializes in studying memories. One day, Ashley's invited by her father Richard to come out to the Lake Juliet Resort, which is where JC Valley is located. By all accounts, this seems like a last-ditch effort to mend their very estranged relationship. Ashley is skeptical of her father's weak attempt to bond, as she's been down this road before. Rightfully, she assumes that he'll just be too preoccupied by his work and won't have enough time for her. You see, our little Ashley is growing up and now has big dreams of becoming a rock star. There's an upcoming Battle of the Bands competition, and this trip will interfere with her band practice. Begrudgingly, Ashley takes the bus to Lake Juliet, and on the ride over, she dreams about all the major events from the previous game. She's then awakened by the memory of the gunshot that killed her mother, Sayoko. Exiting the bus, she's disappointed to find out her father is nowhere to be found, and then she's mugged by a shadowy figure that makes off with her bag. This event sets the tone for more tension between the estranged father and daughter, as well as giving Ashley her first mystery to solve. It's at this point that the player controls Ashley for the first time. The movement here is quite simple. You either press left or right on the D-pad, or point and click in the direction you want to travel using the Wiimote. The maps are presented on a very basic two-dimensional plane, and getting where you need to go is seamless, with minimal loading screens to interfere with the atmosphere. I quite love how some of the area transitions have a pop-up storybook quality to them when Ashley runs through them. The setting of Lake Juliet is like a Bob Ross portrait come to life. It just captures the essence of a great summer getaway. CING opted for cel shading when it came to the design of the characters, and I think this choice blends well with the hand-painted backdrops of Lake Juliet. Another Code R stands as CING's most expensive and graphically impressive title to date. The blending of the cel-shaded characters and painted backgrounds lend a timeless quality that still looks stunning to this day. CING designed this title with a high degree of expertise of the platform they were developing it for. They highlight just about every odd gimmick of the system they're working on. For example, in Trace Memory, the game centered around the DAS, or a fictional version of the DS, that Ashley would use to solve puzzles, take notes, or snap photos of her environment. Another Code R takes it up a notch by providing Ashley with an upgraded version of the DAS. The game was released around the time when the DSi was brand new, and that's reflected here in the updated design. Ashley can now receive emails occasionally, mostly from her dad Richard about nothing in particular, and she'll unlock more features for the DAS as the game progresses, such as the ability to hack into the video feed of all the cameras on Lake Juliet. She's like a little miniature NSA. Daddy must be proud. Now the real star here is the latest gadget in her utility belt, the TAS, also known as a Wiimote that doubles as a hacking tool that she uses to decrypt passcodes on doors to then gain access to restricted areas in Lake Juliet. You'll come to find that Lake Juliet is covered with these locks, so you'll be solving these riddles quite often. These riddles are some of the most clever implementations of the Wiimote that I've experienced on the platform. The progression and difficulty of the task puzzles are steadily increased, always building on prior knowledge gained from past solutions. There's a little bit of logic behind the waggling this time around. Though the game box deceptively advertises that another Code R can be played solely with a Wiimote, that's not entirely true. A nunchuck is required for one puzzle in the game. I don't want to spoil the experience for you, just keep one handy and you'll be fine. Ashley meets a young boy and his dog as they're raiding the back room of a convenience store to steal some food. This little thief is Matthew Caruso, a kid that's just looking for his father, whom disappeared under mysterious circumstances at Lake Juliet a few years earlier. Matthew becomes Ashley's constant companion throughout the game, much like Dee from Trace Memory, only not a ghost of a dead boy this time around. Is this gonna be a happy game? Matthew is an easy person for Ashley to relate to, because she experienced a very similar incident a couple of years ago when she set out to find her missing father on Blood Edward Island. This is probably why Rika Suzuki considers Matthew to be the shadow of Ashley. The catch is, Matthew ran away from the care of his uncle to come to Lake Juliet and is being sought out by the park ranger to send him back home. So the pair have to tread carefully around the lake to keep Matt hidden until he can find out the truth of what happened to his father. Ashley and Matt will encounter many broken people along their journey. You'll learn just about every last detail about who the person is, who their friends are, family members, enemies, and sometimes even their favorite food. Salmon rice burger sounds so good. Character development was always this team's strongest suit. They put in the extra time to ensure that almost every character is shown from all sides. The writing is so good that you end up empathizing with the blonde rich girl that bullies Ashley throughout the game. Hell, even the dog gets a story arc and resolution by the end of the game. Bravo, CING. If any dog could have a story arc, I knew you guys would be the ones to write it. I think what makes the series so special to me is how easy it is to connect to the world of another due to how well it's fleshed out and the way the characters and scenarios are presented to the player. When Ashley speaks to another character, the conversation takes place in two separate windows. This method of dual framing was also a feature present in Hotel Dusk, where each character would occupy a screen in a horizontal orientation to capture the feeling of a living novel. Each character would be featured in their own center frame close-up, which gives the player an immediate view of both characters and their reactions as the conversation plays out. There's also a technical reason for this split framing, since we're not provided with dual screens this time around. A new feature present in this game is that in conversations, Ashley is now given different emotional responses to choose from. They are presented in a way that gives the player a preview of what to expect in the outcome of the choice. Now, these choices don't necessarily affect the course of the game, or lead you to a dire outcome like in Hotel Dusk's case, where a choice could potentially lead to a game over or get you the bad ending. They're just minor choices that help contextualize the situation and give way to more meaningful character development for Ashley. Check out this meaningful character development. There's a little part in the game where Ashley can buy everything in the convenience store with Richard's credit card. This is optional, but who cares? He's got science dollars. Put it on the dad tab. Thank you. Maybe this is too late into the video to address this, but I think if you really want to appreciate all the attention to detail going on in Another Code, then you've got to play Trace Memory and Hotel Dusk. And I'm not just saying that because this is a fantastic sequel and it takes the original storyline and kicks it up a notch. Because it did. Not only does Another Code share certain motifs like soda pop brands or cartoon characters, but if you look close enough, you'll notice that Martin Summer and Louis DeNono from Hotel Dusk appear in these photographs, suggesting that they visited Lake Juliet at some point in time. And no, these weren't mere Easter eggs thrown in for the hell of it. These were intentional inclusions to place Another Code and Hotel Dusk in the same world to set up a future crossover for the two series. That unfortunately never came to be. Now, many reviewers at the time took issue with the pacing of this game's story, complaining that it was too slow and it didn't unfold as quickly as they would have liked. Man, that sounds like a sweet fucking job. I wish I could get paid to complain about stuff all day. Patreon.com/Hikiko. I'm gonna try to explain why the slower approach to storytelling works so well for this game. For the most part, Ashley just travels through typical everyday environments, meets somewhat normal people, and doesn't stumble upon any murder scenes. Yeah, I can see how this may be untypical of mystery games that many will have played prior to this one. CING's games never really tackle that kind of stuff. They subvert typical mystery game expectations by presenting the players with an all accounts fairly mundane world. But I think that sort of thing heightens the impact of the drama when it finally does show up. It comes out of left field and you're like, whoa, surprise! Throughout the game, the players need to take in all the environmental details and cross-reference them with the stories that the characters have been telling them. And you aren't always shown the major events that went on. Oftentimes they happen in the past. The game doesn't explicitly show you everything and it requires a degree of imagination. You know, somewhat like reading a real novel. Read and solve like a mystery novel. They weren't lying. The scenario Suzuki wrote continued the trend of characters dealing with unbearable grief in the present over the events of the past. The story does take some morbidly twisted turns in the final chapters. The sense of security you felt throughout the entire game, it's gone, and that makes the more climactic moments far more impactful. I still get shaken by the thought that one character in particular will never have closure to his story. Never ever, never ever. So, let's address the shiny-chinned elephant in the room here. Why is Another Code R a dead franchise in the first place? It's certainly nothing to do with the quality of the game, and I'm pretty sure it had nothing to do with the sales of the prequel either. According to Takuya Miyagawa, Another Code, Two Memories, and Hotel Dusk Room 215 have succeeded very well. That statement is also backed by the fact that Nintendo was willing to greenlight sequels to both series, so they must have been a financial success in some regard. Now take this upcoming data with a grain of salt. but just using the records of sales that I found on VG charts, Trace Memory and Hotel Dusk sold highest in the United States in both cases. Both titles sold substantially more copies in the US than in Europe, so let me ask, why bother releasing a sequel to a game that no one in Europe bought in the first place? It doesn't make any sense. This happened again with Hotel Dusk sequel, The Last Window, which was left in Europe and Japan despite it selling so well in America that it received additional print runs with alternate cover art. Nintendo of America's failure to localize two major titles for CING in America all but signed the death warrant for the company, as the studio couldn't afford to stay in business any longer. CING was forced to file for bankruptcy, as they were liable for 256 million yen, or roughly around $2 million of debt. In the big picture, that's not a lot of money. And hypothetically speaking, if The Last Window and Another Code R would have been afforded a US localization, they would have only needed to sell around 25,000 copies at $40 a piece to break even, which would have been an easy goal for each title to hit in the West, considering that the prequels sold just over 300,000 copies combined. In America, Nintendo truly fucked up with this one, as the adventure game genre was just a couple of years shy of a new renaissance with the release of Telltale's The Walking Dead. Sadly, the real mystery to be solved isn't the disappearance of Matthew's father, sorry dude, but the mystery of Nintendo of America's localization decisions in the late 2000s. This is not the only case of this happening. It just keeps happening. So to close out this video, I pose one final question to one individual in particular. How many dreams must your body consume before its thirst will finally be quenched, Reggie?